Hey guys, today we're going to do the fertilizer injector. It's called an Hozon, H-O-Z-O-N, proportioner. It's right down here. I've talked about it to you in class. This is a really inexpensive way to add fertilizer into your irrigation water. So what we have here, right, this is the actual proportioner. The yellow hose is the water coming through from the faucet, right? I put this into my bucket, and I'm going to mix the fertilizer and put it in there in a minute, but I just wanted to explain this to you again because we're confused about some of it. So as I turn on my wand here, right, and water comes out, you can hear that sucking. And what it's going to do now is it's going to fill with my water until I get the air out of there. It's kind of herky-jerky. And, whoops, I pinched the hose. So I don't know if you can come closer, Janice. Can you hear this? And right now, watch. I'm going to try and suck some of those little pieces of dirt in. Can you see them going in? So, there it goes. See it? So it's sucking water out of my bucket. So for every gallon that this black tube sucks out of this bucket, which is going to have highly concentrated fertilizer in it, for every 1 gallon that comes out there, 16 gallons comes out of my wand. So that's the proportioner, 16 to 1, right? 16 gallons of water coming out, 1 gallon of fertilizer concentrate coming up through the black tube. So let's go over and do our fertilizer. Okay, so we're going to use triple 20, right? 20-20-20 fertilizer. I did a little research. We want to up the proportion or the fertilizer amount to 200 parts per million. So I looked up, time to do some math. I looked up in our book and the chart, and for 200 parts per million, we need 13. So my rate is 13.3 ounces per 100 gallons, right? We're going to put an equal sign. We're going to put our line. We're not going to think, don't think, ounces over gallons. Right? So now we have to go back. I put exactly 4 gallons of water in that 5-gallon bucket, right? So if I have 4 gallons times 16 gallons, when it pulls out, right, it's going to take 16 gallons of water to take 1 gallon out of the bucket. That's a total of 64 gallons. I put 64 gallons here, so now I want to see if I need 13.3 ounces for 100 gallons. I want to know, question mark, how many ounces of fertilizer do I need for 64 gallons? Equal signs. I'm going to cross multiply 100 question marks, a lot of question marks, equals 13.3 times 64 is 851.2, right? I've got to isolate the question mark, so I'm going to divide this side by whatever's in front of it, so it equals 1 question mark. Whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. So I move my decimal over 2 spots. 8.51 ounces for 64 gallons. Clear as mud? Okay, so now we're going to go over here. I've got a scale, and I've already done most of this, right? So we can see our little digital scale. I'm actually adding more because the cup itself weighed almost a half an ounce. So I'm just going to show you, right, here's our scale. We're going to get it up. We want it basically just at about 9. Yeah, that's perfect because it's the 8.51 plus like 0.46 is 8.95. So now we're ready to go over and mix it. And actually, before we go over, I want to show you this is a backflow preventer that if you have an irrigation system at home, this is what it would look like. It'd be somewhere outside the house where they're tapped into your water for the irrigation system. This is what happens when you don't blow out your irrigation line in the winter. They blow up. So this is an old broken one, right? So we don't have this in the greenhouse. We just have that small thing that we showed you before. So I'm going to take my fertilizer over. I'm going to put it into my 5-gallon bucket. I have a fancy stirring stick. I did clean it off a little bit to get some particles off of it. I'm going to mix that up real good. Now there's one other thing I do, and most people do, but you'd think that because it's so blue like this that it does come out bluish, but not enough. I want to make sure that I always know that it's working properly. So I add this blue dye. It's a tracer dye. If you want to be a Smurf for any kind of a party, this is the stuff to use. It is, that's way more than I needed, but it's very hard to pour this without getting it all over you. But what that'll do is it's going to turn it so blue that when I start fertilizing, I'll be able to see it. I'll be able to see it come out for sure. I'll know it's working, which I will demonstrate now. One other thing, when I'm doing this, I always put the hose through the middle of the bucket. So now when I have to pick up and I'll have to move, because, oh, the other thing I didn't mention, remember, so this green hose, if you notice, is only about 10 feet. You cannot put a long hose after the Hozon, after the proportioner. If you lose too much pressure, it doesn't function and the vacuum doesn't work. The other thing, remember we always use these dispersal things. I have to, whenever we do the fertilizing, we have to use a small one because ultimately not enough water, too much water tries to come out of there and it doesn't work right. So we just learned by trial and error that you always want to use one of these. So let's see here, at some point it should turn blue. So right now it's starting to suck up out of the 5-gallon bucket. It's going to take a while for the water, there it comes, right? It took that long now for it to go through the green hose. So now I'm fertilizing. I know I'm good to go. So the last thing I'm going to do, and I'm not going to videotape it, but everything in the greenhouse needs to get fertilized and watered thoroughly because it's really, really dry. So I will do that. I don't need to show you that, but I'm going to fill each pot, guys, with water so that I know that I have I fully fertilized. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to start wearing different shirts. This is from 2009, Cal Poly in California, where the competition was. Back then it was called Student Career Days, but whatever, having fun. All right, take it easy. Talk to you next time.